The Great Hall of Nathara Prime was full of laughter. Thousands of aliens from 47 different species had gathered for the centennial summit of the Galactic Accord. They came in all shapes and sizes. Some had scales, some had feathers. Some had no solid form at all. But tonight, they all shared one thing in common. They were laughing at humans. High Counselor Vatha stood at the center of the crystal stage. She was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms that moved like water when she spoke. Behind her, a massive screen showed images captured from human space. Old movies, history recordings, strange ceremonies where humans gathered around fires and told stories. "My friends," Vatha said, her voice carrying across the hall. "We have now known about the human species for 30 years. In that time, we have learned much about them. Mostly, we have learned that they are the greatest storytellers in the galaxy." The crowd laughed. Ambassador Chorus, a reptilian diplomat with green scales and golden eyes, stepped forward. He had been the first to encounter humans when their damaged cargo ship drifted into Accord space 3 decades ago. Since then, only a handful of human traders had visited Accord worlds. They were small. They were soft. They had no natural weapons. And yet, the stories they told about themselves were unbelievable. "Let me share some of my favorite human legends," Chorus said. He pressed a button, and the screen changed to show ancient humans walking across a frozen wasteland. They claim their ancestors crossed entire continents of ice, on foot, with no technology. Just animal skins and pointed sticks. Laughter filled the hall. The screen changed again. This time, it showed a massive explosion rising into the sky like a mushroom. "They claim they discovered how to split the atom," Chorus continued. "And then, they used it as a weapon. Against themselves. Twice. And they survived as a species." More laughter. "They claim individual humans can run without stopping for days. That they can heal from broken bones. That they once hunted giant creatures to extinction, using nothing but patience and rocks." By now, many aliens were struggling to breathe from laughing so hard. One delegate, a floating gas being from the outer rim, had to reform itself twice because it kept losing shape from amusement. High Counselor Vatha raised her 4 hands for silence. "We do not mock the humans with cruelty," she said. "We admire their imagination. They are a young species. They have not yet learned the difference between legend and reality. In time, they will understand that the universe does not work the way their stories suggest." She smiled, showing rows of small teeth. "Until then, we welcome their traders, enjoy their fiction, and appreciate that they have remained peaceful in their small corner of space." The crowd applauded. The summit continued with other business. Trade agreements, border disputes, the usual matters that kept the Accord running smoothly. But not everyone was laughing. In the back of the hall, Scholar Orem sat alone at her observation post. She was small for her species, with large eyes that had spent too many years staring at screens. For 3 decades, she had studied every transmission that came out of human space, every broadcast, every historical record, every piece of data she could find. At first, she had laughed too. The human claims seemed absurd. No species could be that violent and still survive. No species could endure such physical damage and keep functioning. No species could be so fragile and yet so dangerous. But then she started checking the mathematics, the death tolls from their wars, the distances they traveled on foot, the speeds at which they healed, the number of predator species they had driven to extinction. She checked and rechecked. She used Accord scientific standards. She consulted biologists and historians and military analysts. The numbers matched, every single time. Orem left her seat and moved through the crowd until she found Ambassador Chorus near the refreshment area. She touched his arm with a trembling appendage. "Ambassador," she whispered. "I need to speak with you. Privately." Chorus looked at her with amusement. Scholar Orem. Still studying the humans. I see. Have you found more funny stories to share? They are not stories, Orem said. Her voice was shaking. I have spent 30 years analyzing their records. Their history is real. All of it. The wars, the endurance, the healing, the hunting. They are not exaggerating, Ambassador. If anything, they are being modest. Chorus laughed and patted her head like she was a confused child. You have been staring at screens for too long, old friend. Humans are small and weak. We have seen them. They cannot even digest half the foods in this room. Go rest. Your mind is playing tricks on you. He walked away, still chuckling. Orem stood alone, her heart's beating too fast. She knew she was right. She knew the galaxy was making a terrible mistake. But no one would listen. 3 hours later, the alarms started. Every sensor on Nathara Prime detected the same thing at the same moment. Ships. Thousands of ships. They appeared at the edge of the system with no warning, dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Their signatures matched nothing in any Accord database. High Counselor Vetha was pulled from a private meeting. General Dran, commander of the Accord's peacekeeping fleet, began shouting orders. 800 vessels scrambled to form a defensive line. For 6 hours, the unknown fleet sat in silence. It did not attack. It did not retreat. It did not respond to any message sent by Accord communications officers. Then, finally, a single transmission came through. The voice was calm and clear, speaking perfect Accord standard language. This is Admiral Park Jae-ho of the United Earth Navy. We received your invitation 30 years late. We apologize for arriving unannounced. In the Great Hall, the laughter had stopped completely. Scholar Orem closed her eyes and whispered to herself, I tried to warn them. The humans had arrived. And they had brought 2,000 warships with them. The command center of Nethera Prime had never been so crowded. Generals, diplomats, scientists, and leaders from dozens of species pushed against each other, all trying to see the same screens. The images showed a fleet unlike anything the Accord had ever witnessed. 2,000 vessels hung in the darkness of space, arranged in formations that seemed almost artistic. They did not move. They did not speak. They simply waited. General Dran stood at the central command table, his massive body covered in thick armor plates that his species grew naturally. He was considered the finest military mind in the Accord. He had commanded peacekeeping forces for over a century. He had never felt fear in battle. He felt it now. How did they get here? He demanded. We have sensors across every approach route. We should have detected them days ago. The science officer, a small creature with too many eyes, shook its head. They did not use any approach route we monitor, General. They came through empty space. No gates. No beacon paths. They navigated the void directly. Dran's armor plates tightened. Navigating void space required computing power and precision that the Accord considered impossible. Yet here were 2,000 ships that had done exactly that. High Counselor Vetha pushed through the crowd, her forearms folded in a gesture of authority. We will not panic, she announced. These are the humans. We have met their traders. They are merchants, not warriors. This must be some kind of mistake. That is no merchant fleet, Dran growled. Those ship designs are military. Every single one. The transmission came again. The same, calm voice. This is Admiral Park Jae-ho of the United Earth Navy. We request permission to send a diplomatic shuttle to the summit. We mean no harm. We only wish to introduce ourselves properly. Vetha looked at Dran. Dran looked at Vetha. Neither knew what to do. Ambassador Chorus stepped forward. Let them come, he said. One shuttle. If they wanted to attack, they would have done so already. Perhaps this truly is a diplomatic mission. Vetha nodded slowly. Transmit permission. One shuttle only. No weapons. 30 minutes later, A small human vessel descended through the atmosphere of Nathara Prime. It was simple in design, almost plain compared to the elegant curves of Accord ships. It landed on the platform outside the Great Hall, and the ramp lowered with a soft hiss. Admiral Park Jae-ho was the first to step out. He was not what they expected. Humans were supposed to be small and fragile. This man was tall, with broad shoulders and a face that showed no emotion. His uniform was dark and simple, with only a few symbols marking his rank. He moved, like someone who had spent his life commanding others. Behind him came 3 more humans, each carrying themselves with the same quiet confidence. Dr. Kim Hanel was a woman with gentle eyes and a soft smile. She was their linguist and historian. Captain Lee Yuna was younger, with short hair and a scar running across her chin. She watched everything with the sharp gaze of a hunter. Commander Bae Sora was built like a wall, with arms thick with muscle and a face that suggested she had seen many battles. Vetha approached them, her 4 arms spread in the traditional greeting of peace. "Welcome to Nathara Prime," she said. "We are surprised by your arrival. We sent no recent invitation." Admiral Park bowed his head politely. "The invitation was sent 30 years ago. A beacon welcoming any species that achieved interstellar travel. We received it when our first ship entered your space." Vetha remembered the old beacon. It was a formality, something that had existed for centuries. No one expected it to actually bring visitors. "Why did you wait so long?" she asked. "And why bring so many ships?" Dr. Kim stepped forward, her voice warm and friendly. "We spent 30 years preparing. We studied your languages. We learned your cultures. We mapped your territories. We wanted to understand the galaxy before we introduced ourselves." General Dran pushed forward, his armor clicking with every step. 2,000 warships is not an introduction. It is a threat. We demand you reduce your presence to diplomatic numbers. 10 vessels, no more. Admiral Park's expression did not change. "With respect, General, these are our diplomatic numbers. Our war fleet remains at home." Silence fell over the command center. Dran's armor plates went completely rigid. Vitha's 4 hands began to tremble. "How many ships do you have?" Chorus asked, his voice barely a whisper. Admiral Park considered the question. "Enough." The word hung in the air like a blade. Captain Lee Yuna smiled slightly. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not a friendly one either. "We are not here to fight," she said. "We are here because we believe the galaxy is about to face a great danger. We have been watching. We have been listening. And we decided it was time to stop hiding." Vetha tried to regain control of the situation. "What danger? The Accord has maintained peace for centuries. There is no threat." "Dien?" Admiral Park exchanged a glance with his officers. Then he turned back to Vitha. "You have a neighbor," he said quietly. "The Varketh Dominion. For centuries, you have avoided direct conflict with them. You believe the peace will hold. It will not. Our intelligence suggests they are preparing an invasion. Within months, possibly weeks, they will strike." Dran stepped forward, his voice rising. "Impossible. We monitor the Dominion constantly. We would know if they were." "You monitor their borders," Admiral Park interrupted calmly. "We monitor everything else. Their communications, their supply lines, their hidden shipyards. They have been building an armada in the dark spaces between your sensors. 15,000 warships. Maybe more." The room erupted in chaos. Voices shouted in a dozen languages. General Dran demanded proof. High Counselor Vetha called for order. Ambassador Chorus stood frozen, his scales turning pale. Through it all, Admiral Park stood perfectly still, his hands clasped behind his back. Scholar Oram pushed through the crowd until she stood before him. She was small compared to the human, barely reaching his chest. But she looked up at him with eyes that held no fear. "I studied your people," she said. "For 30 years. I tried to tell them your legends were real. No one believed me." Admiral Park looked down at her. For the first time, Something like warmth crossed his face. "Then you understand," he said. "We are not here to conquer. We are not here to demand. We are here because you laughed at what we are. And when the Dominion comes, you will need what we are." Orem nodded slowly. "I believe you." "Good," Admiral Park said. "You may be the only one." General Dran did not trust the humans. He had spent his entire life studying warfare. He knew that strength without proof was just noise. Words meant nothing. Only action revealed truth. So he demanded a demonstration. "If you are as powerful as you claim," he told Admiral Park, "then you will have no problem showing us. We will display our military capabilities. You will display yours. Then we will know who we are truly dealing with." Admiral Park agreed without hesitation. "Choose the location." They selected an asteroid field far from any inhabited world. 300 large rocks floated in the emptiness, some as big as mountains. The Accord brought 200 of their finest warships. The humans brought only 5. General Dran smiled when he saw the small number. Perhaps they were bluffing after all. The Accord demonstration began with perfect precision. Their ships moved in tight formations. Every vessel synchronized with the others. Plasma cannons fired in coordinated bursts, and asteroids exploded into dust. The display was beautiful and deadly. It showed centuries of training and technology working together. General Dran watched the human observers with satisfaction. "This is what real military power looks like," he said. "Our fleet has maintained peace across 47 systems for generations. No species has ever defeated us in open combat." Admiral Park nodded politely. "Very impressive formations. Can you match it?" The Admiral turned to Captain Lee Yuna. Captain Yuna smiled. The Guishin was her ship, named after an old Korean word for ghost. She loved that ship more than anything else in the universe, and she loved showing people what it could do. The Guishin was a mid-sized vessel, sleek and dark. It hung among the other human ships, appearing completely ordinary. Then, without warning, it vanished. General Dran's sensors screamed. His technicians scrambled. Every detection system in the Accord fleet tried to find the missing ship. They searched for heat signatures, radiation trails, gravitational disturbances. They found nothing. For 10 minutes, the Guishin did not exist. Then half the asteroids in the field exploded. Not from the outside, like the Accord weapons had done. From the inside, 50 massive rocks cracked apart simultaneously, revealing that something had been placed within them, without anyone noticing. The Guishin reappeared directly behind General Dran's flagship, inside his defensive formation. If Captain Yuna had wanted to, she could have destroyed his entire command structure before he even knew she was there. Her transmission was casual, almost bored. "We prefer not to be seen until we choose to be seen." Dran said nothing. His armor plates had gone completely loose, a sign of deep shock in his species. But the demonstration was not over. On a nearby moon, Commander Bay Sora prepared the ground forces display. 200 Accord soldiers stood ready, representing the best warriors from a dozen species. They were large and strong, with natural armor and weapons built into their bodies. Some could spit acid, others had claws that could cut through metal. All of them believed they were the finest fighters in the galaxy. Commander Bay Sora brought 20 humans. The first test was endurance. The Accord soldiers ran a standard military distance, approximately 15 of their standard units. It took them 2 hours. Many needed rest afterward. The humans ran the same distance in half the time. Then they kept running. 4 more hours. 6. 8. Some of the Accord observers started to leave, assuming the test was over. The humans were still running when they came back. "How is this possible?" one Accord medic asked. "Their bodies should have collapsed hours ago." Dr. Kim Hanuel, who was observing nearby, explained calmly. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters. Our ancestors did not catch prey by being faster. They caught prey by never stopping. We chased animals until they died of exhaustion. Our bodies are designed to keep moving long after other species would fall. The second test was damage resistance. An Accord soldier demonstrated by taking a controlled strike from a training weapon. The blow broke 3 of his bones. He was carried away for medical treatment. Commander Bay Sora stepped forward. Without warning, she struck her own arm against a stone pillar. The crack was audible. Several observers gasped. She examined her arm calmly. "Fractured," she said. Then, she put it in a simple sling and continued standing at attention. "What are you doing?" the medic demanded. "You need treatment," Sora shrugged with her good shoulder. "It will heal in 6 weeks. I have had worse." The medic scanned her body and went pale. Her skeleton showed evidence of dozens of previous fractures, all healed. Scars covered her skin from injuries that would have killed most Accord species. There was evidence of internal organ damage that had somehow repaired itself. "How are you alive?" the medic whispered. Sora smiled. It was not a gentle smile. "Humans break. Then humans heal. Then humans get back up. This is what we have always done." Scholar Orem found High Counselor Vatha in the observation room. Vatha was staring at the screens with an expression Orem had never seen before. It was fear. Pure and absolute fear. "I tried to tell you," Orem said softly. "I spent 30 years reading their history. Every war they fought against each other. Every disaster they survived. Every predator they defeated. I told you their legends were real." Vatha turned to face her. "How did we not see this?" "Because we did not want to see it," Orem answered. "They are small. They are soft on the outside. They have no natural weapons. So we assumed they were weak. We never considered that something without claws could be dangerous. We never imagined that survival could be its own weapon." General Dran entered the room, his movements slow and heavy. He had not spoken since the Guishin reappeared behind his ship. "They could destroy us," he said. His voice was quiet, almost broken. "At any moment. They have been in our space for 30 years, watching us, learning us. If they wanted to conquer the Accord, they could have done it already." Vatha turned to face the screens again. "Then why did they not?" On the display, Admiral Park was speaking with Ambassador Chorus. He was explaining human history, showing records of their wars and disasters. But he was not boasting. He was teaching. He wanted the Accord to understand. Orem answered Vatha's question. "Because they are not here to conquer. They are here to help. And when the Dominion comes, we are going to need every legend they have." The warning came at midnight. A small scout ship dropped out of hyperspace near Nathara Prime, its hull burned and broken. The pilot was barely alive, his voice crackling through damaged communications. "They came without warning," he gasped. "The Varketh Dominion. Thousands of ships. The border colonies are gone. All of them. Gone." General Dran mobilized every ship he had. 800 vessels. The entire peacekeeping fleet of the Galactic Accord. It was the largest military force they had assembled in centuries. And as the reports continued to arrive, he knew it would not be enough. 12 border worlds had fallen in the first attack. The Dominion fleet was not 15,000 ships as the humans had estimated. It was closer to 20,000. They moved through Accord space like fire through dry grass, burning everything in their path. High Counselor Vatha called an emergency session of the summit. Every species leader was present, their faces showing the same terrible understanding. They were watching the end of everything they had built. "Our forces cannot hold them," General Dran admitted. His voice was flat, defeated. "The mathematics are simple. They outnumber us 20 to 1. Even with perfect strategy, we will be destroyed within weeks." The room was silent. Species that had been rivals for centuries looked at each other with shared despair. There was nowhere to run. The Dominion would not stop until the entire Accord was under their control. Ambassador Chorus spoke quietly. "What about the humans?" Every head turned toward the corner where Admiral Park Jeho stood with his officers. He had been watching the crisis unfold without speaking. His expression remained calm, almost peaceful. Vetha stood from her seat. Her 4 arms hung at her sides, all pride gone from her posture. She walked toward the human admiral and stopped directly in front of him. "We laughed at you," she said. "We mocked your legends. We called you primitive and delusional. We treated you like children playing at being warriors." Admiral Park said nothing. "We were wrong," Vitha continued, "about everything. And now we face extinction because we were too arrogant to see what you truly were." She lowered her head, a gesture that her species had not performed to another in over 1,000 years. "Will you help us?" Admiral Park was quiet for a long moment. The entire room waited, barely breathing. 30 years ago, he finally said, a damaged human cargo ship drifted into your space. The crew was rescued by Ambassador Chorus. He treated them with kindness. He gave them food and shelter and helped them return home. That is why we did not simply ignore your beacon. Chorus blinked in surprise. He barely remembered that encounter. It had seemed so unimportant at the time. Since then, Admiral Park continued, we have watched you. We learned your languages. We studied your cultures. We saw your flaws. Your arrogance. Your dismissiveness toward species you considered lesser. Vitha flinched. But we also saw your kindness. Your cooperation. Your desire for peace. You built an accord of 47 species that live together without constant war. That is not nothing. That is precious. He stepped forward until he was face to face with the High Counselor. We did not spend 30 years preparing because we wanted to conquer you. We spent 30 years preparing because we knew someone would eventually try. And we decided that, when that day came, we would be ready to help. He turned to his officers. Captain Lee Yuna was already typing on a portable device. Commander Bae Sora was checking her equipment. Dr. Kim Haniel was reviewing star charts. Our fleet here numbers 2,000 ships, Admiral Park said. But as I told General Dran, this is only our diplomatic force. Our full military has never left human space. Until now. He opened a communication channel. His voice was steady and clear. Admiral Park to Sol Command. Execute Protocol Guishin. All fleets are cleared for full deployment. Repeat. Full deployment. The response came immediately. Sol Command confirms. All fleets mobilizing. Estimated arrival at Nathara Gate. 18 hours. Vetha stared at him. How many ships? 42,000. The number hung in the air. General Dran made a sound that might have been a laugh, or might have been a sob. 42,000 warships. More than twice what the Dominion had brought. We built them in secret, Admiral Park explained. Deep in our home system. Behind sensor barriers that made our space look empty. We knew we were not welcome in the galaxy. We knew species would fear us if they understood what we truly were. Captain Yuna looked up from her device. Admiral, the Dominion is moving toward Nathara Gate. They plan to use it as a choke point. If they control the gate, they control access to the inner accord systems. Admiral Park nodded. Then that is where we will meet them. He turned to General Dran. Your 800 ships will serve as the defensive line. Hold the gate until our fleet arrives. Can you do that? After. Dran straightened, his armor plates clicking into battle configuration. Good. Admiral Park looked at Commander Bae Sora. Commander, prepare the ground assault teams. We will need to board their command ships. Sora grinned. It was the first genuine smile anyone had seen from a human since they arrived. Finally, Scholar Oram approached Admiral Park as the room filled with activity. Officers from every species were receiving orders, coordinating movements, preparing for the battle to come. You knew this would happen, she said quietly. You knew the Dominion would attack. That is why you came now. Admiral Park looked at her with something like respect. We suspected. The Dominion has been growing stronger for decades. The Accord was too focused on internal politics to see it. We tried to warn you, but warnings from a species you consider primitive are easy to ignore. So you came with 2,000 ships instead. Sometimes, Admiral Park said, actions speak louder than words. He walked toward the door, his officers falling into step behind him. At the entrance, he paused and looked back at the gathered leaders of the Galactic Accord. You laughed at our legends, he said. In 18 hours, you will watch those legends fight for you. Try not to laugh this time. Then he was gone, walking toward his ship with the calm confidence of a man who had been preparing for this moment his entire life. The Nathara Gate was a point in space where the fabric of reality grew thin. Ships could pass through it faster than through normal hyperspace. Whoever controlled the gate controlled the heart of the Accord. The Varkith Dominion knew this. That is why they brought their entire armada. Supreme Commander Talvex stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching 20,000 warships assemble into attack formation. He was massive, even by Dominion standards. His body was covered in black armor that had been grown directly from his bones. His species had evolved for conquest, and Talvex was the finest example of his kind. The Accord fleet appeared before him, 800 ships forming a desperate defensive line. Talvex laughed when he saw them. Is this truly all they have? He asked his officers. Centuries of peace have made them weak. Signal the fleet. Begin the assault. Then his sensors detected something else. 2,000 additional ships, arranged in a formation his tactical computers did not recognize. The signatures were unfamiliar, matching nothing in any Dominion database. What is this? Talvex demanded. Before anyone could answer, a transmission came through on all frequencies. The voice was calm and clear, speaking in perfectly accented Dominion language. This is Admiral Park Jeho of the United Earth Navy. I am addressing Supreme Commander Talvex directly. On behalf of humanity, I offer you one chance to withdraw your forces. We are not a patient species, and we do not grant second chances. Talvex stared at the screen showing the human fleet. 2,000 ships. Against his 20,000. The mathematics were laughable. Humans, he said, finally remembering the small species he had heard about in intelligence reports. Traders. Merchants. No military presence. Nothing to fear. Ignore them, he ordered. Destroy the Accord fleet first. We will deal with the humans after. The Dominion Armada surged forward. 800 Accord ships opened fire, their weapons barely scratching the Dominion shields. General Dran held the line, but his forces were dying by the minute. 5 ships lost, then 20, then 50. The humans did not move. They sat in perfect formation, watching the slaughter. Talvex smiled. They were afraid. They had come to make threats, and now they realized they were outmatched. Then the sky tore open. Space itself seemed to crack as 40,000 additional warships emerged from hyperspace. They appeared everywhere at once, surrounding the Dominion fleet in a sphere of steel and fire. Their formations were perfect, each ship exactly where it needed to be. Talvex felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Where did they come from? He roared. We had scouts in every system. There was no fleet. His tactical officer was shaking. They came through empty space, Commander. No gates. No beacon paths. They navigated the void directly. The human fleet began to move. And they moved fast. Faster than any Dominion ship could match. They cut through Talvex's formations like water through sand, appearing where they were not expected, striking before defensive systems could respond. Captain Lee Yuna's wing went dark, vanishing from every sensor. Dominion commanders screamed as their ships exploded from within, destroyed by weapons they never saw coming. The Guishan appeared behind Talvex's flagship, fired a single shot that disabled his engines, then vanished again before his gunners could aim. Commander Bay Sora led boarding parties onto enemy vessels. Dominion soldiers stood ready, confident in their natural superiority. They were larger than humans, stronger, better armed. It did not matter. The humans fought with a fury that the Dominion had never seen. They took wounds that should have been fatal and kept fighting. They ran through corridors faster than the enemy could track. They adapted to every tactic within seconds, learning and improving with each engagement. On one captured ship, a Dominion captain watched a human soldier take a plasma blast to the shoulder, stagger for a moment, then continue advancing as if nothing had happened. "What are you?" the captain whispered. The soldier smiled through blood and pain. "We are human. We do not stop." Dr. Kim Hanwol had cracked the Dominion communication encryption within the first hour of battle. Now, human operators were sending false orders across the enemy fleet, turning their own ships against each other. 3 Dominion destroyers opened fire on their flagship, believing it had been captured. It had not been. But by the time they realized the mistake, the damage was done. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Varketh Dominion fleet had ceased to exist. 20,000 warships, reduced to scattered debris floating in the void. Supreme Commander Talvex was captured alive, dragged from his broken flagship by Commander Bay Sora. Personally, he did not struggle. There was no fight left in him. "You were supposed to be merchants," he whispered as they bound his arms. "Traders. Storytellers. That is what our intelligence said." Sora looked down at him with cold eyes. "Your intelligence was wrong." The celebration on Nethera Prime lasted for days. Species that had been preparing for extinction now danced in the streets. Generals who had expected to die old embraced their families. The Galactic Accord had been saved. Admiral Park Jeho stood before the gathered leaders of 47 species. His uniform was clean, but his eyes showed the weight of everything he had done. Behind him, his officers stood at attention. Captain Yuna, Commander Sora, Dr. Kim, the heroes of the 18-hour war. High Counselor Vetha approached him slowly. Her movements were different now. There was respect in every step. "You saved us," she said. "All of us. And we did nothing to deserve it." Admiral Park shook his head. "You treated our first visitors with kindness. Ambassador Chorus gave shelter to lost travelers. That was enough." Vetha gestured to the gathered crowd. "We laughed at your legends. We called them fairy tales. We mocked your history as impossible." Admiral Park was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice carrying across the great hall. "We are the species that hunted mammoths with sharpened sticks. We are the species that walked across continents of ice when the world tried to freeze us. We are the species that split atoms and chose not to destroy ourselves. Every legend you mocked, we lived. Every impossible story you laughed at, we survived." He paused. "We do not tell legends to make ourselves seem greater than we are. We tell legends to remember how we survived. And we survived because we never give up. We never stop. We never accept that anything is impossible." Scholar Orem stepped forward. In her hands, she held a data tablet containing her life's work. 30 years of research into human history. "I would like to publish this," she said. "The complete truth about humanity, so that no one ever makes the mistake of underestimating you again." Admiral Park looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Publish it. Let the galaxy know. We are not the greatest warriors because we are the strongest. We are the greatest warriors because we are the most stubborn. We refuse to die. We refuse to surrender. And we refuse to let those we care about face darkness alone." 1 year later, humanity was formally inducted into the Galactic Accord. Not as a minor species, not as observers, but as founding protectors, equal partners in the future of the galaxy. Scholar Orem's research became required reading at every military academy in Accord space. She titled it simply, "Why the Galaxy Stopped Laughing," and in the halls of power, Among diplomats and generals and leaders of 100 worlds, a new saying took hold. Never assume the human is exaggerating. They have never needed to. The legend was real. It had always been real. And now, the entire galaxy knew it.